Welcome to the Rising Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Mark J. Silverman. Okay, you've taken the leadership course. You know that listening is important. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Curiosity is the buzzword that they drill into us. You know, go into a conversation. Don't think about what you're going to say. Be curious and listen. And I know when I'm in a coaching conversation, I can do that. When I'm in a coaching conversation, my ADHD disappears. I'm focused. I can feel people breathing. I can see eye movement. I'm totally there and I am listening. I don't interrupt unless it's on purpose. I'm a very different person. When I'm out in the world or in my intimate relationships, all bets are off. Listening is a tough one for me. But it's such an essential skill for creating relationships. It's also a skill for influencing. So my next guest wrote a book about it, and it's really pretty cool where we're going to talk about this today. Oscar Trimboli is an award-winning author, host of the Apple award-winning podcast Deep Listening, and a sought-after keynote speaker. His third book is How to Listen, Discover the Hidden Key to Better Communication, the most comprehensive book about listening in the workplace. Along with the Deep Listening Ambassador community, he is on a quest to create 100 million deep listeners in the workplace. That would be an amazing environment to be in. Through his work with chairs, board of directors, and executive teams, Oscar has experienced firsthand the transformational impact leaders can have when they listen beyond words. Oscar, thanks for being on the show.
G'day, Mark. Looking forward to listening to your questions today.
It's so interesting. I commented. I noticed the difference in our energies when we first started talking, and how you showed up, how you set your environment up for this to be a meaningful conversation. And even though you're going to be interviewed and I'm going to be asking you questions, you're so present that whether you're speaking or listening, the vibe is the same. So I'm curious, why is this an important topic for you?
I think you have to zoom into April 2008. I'm in a boardroom in Sydney, Australia, and we're setting the annual budget for Microsoft, and we're communicating to the United States via video conference and Singapore also via video conference. There's about 18 people on this budget setting meeting, which is due to go for 90 minutes. And 20 minutes in, my vice president, my boss sitting in the room in Sydney, looks me straight in the eye and says, "Oscar, we need to talk immediately after this meeting." Now, I don't know about you, Mark, but when someone says something like that, the conclusion I immediately jumped to and stopped listening for the remainder of the meeting was, I'm about to get fired and I better figure out who are the 5 people I need to call and how many weeks of salary do I have left. So the answer was 13 weeks. And I only had 3 people that I could call. Now, miraculously, the meeting finished early, 70 minutes in. So everybody kind of packed their stuff up and started moving out. And so did I, to try and avoid my execution. Tracy said to me, "Hey, Oscar, make sure you close the door because what I have to say to you is really important." And I stepped back to the desk after closing the door. And Tracy said to me, "Oscar, if you could code how to listen, you could change the world." What I heard was, "Woohoo! I haven't lost my job." Unfortunately, because I wasn't paying attention for the balance of the meeting, I also got a really big uplift on one of the budget lines because I wasn't really paying attention in the meeting. So since that day, I haven't been trying to code how I listen, but I've been trying to code how the best listeners in the world listen. I've interviewed academics and judges and journalists and hostage negotiators and researched over 35,000 workplace listeners in how they listen to get us to today.
So Tracy launched a whole new career for you.
I think there's probably 2-3 lessons in that. What you say as a leader, what Tracy said to me, and what the other person hears may be 2 completely different things. So as leaders, the message we transmit and the message they receive can be 2 totally different things. I think the other thing Tracy did was a really skillful, beautiful piece of listening, because the question I posed at the 20-minute mark, which is before everybody throws out a number, could they just unpack the assumptions that sit behind it, or how have you come to that number? Like that question I use quite regularly in other forums, in other jobs, in where other leaders were present or other people were present. But she noticed not only that I was using that question, which by the way shortened the meeting by 20 minutes. Because from that point on, everybody kind of wasn't trying to defend a position, more to explain how they arrived at the position.
Mhm.
And that's one of the dirty little secrets about listening well. People think listening takes too much time. Well, in fact, it reduces time in the long term because you get to understanding much quicker. You get to the key issues much quicker. So, yeah, Tracy is someone I'm forever grateful to for helping me see the world through eyes I was already seeing. But she just kind of like that person who gets you at the traffic lights with a little squeegee and clears the front windscreen. You can just see a little clearer.
I think that she saw your zone of genius that you just kind of took for granted and pointed that out for you.
It's exactly what she did.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, what do we get wrong? Since when I did the introduction, we talked about how the fact that we're told as leaders to listen. We're told as humans it's better to listen. What do like? I'm sure that is like 10-15% of what we know about listening. Tell me what we're missing by not going further into this topic.
Uh, Look, the cost of not listening is reduced profits, employees who leave earlier than they need to, customers who go to the competition, projects that are over schedule, market share that's not at its potential. There are many things when it comes to the commercial impact of listening, but in terms of what do people get wrong about
And
listening,
that's what I mean when I think I know about listening. And then I go dive into your content and I'm like, I don't know the first thing about listening. So that's what I'm looking for is like, where is the iceberg when we're just looking at the tip?
yeah, well, the first thing most listening training will tell you is, focus on the speaker, pay attention, look at their face, look at that. Like, that's great, but it's not powerful and it's not sustainable. A lot of people say, oh, listening's hard, listening's draining, because they're kind of thinking that listening is some version of therapy. The first thing people get wrong is they focus on the speaker. Step one in listening is listen to yourself.
Ooh,
Most people arrive at a meeting, and if you had closed captioning on in the inside of their brain, it will sound like this. I've still got three things to do from that last meeting. Oh, gee, I'm going to run late for this meeting. And after this meeting, I've got another meeting. And then Mary's in this meeting as well. And I don't get on too well with Mary. And then I haven't done my deliverable. And I hope they don't ask. It's like you are stuck in your head. Aren't even ready to listen. You don't even have the capacity to listen, or you don't have the capacity to sustain your listening because you haven't taken the time to listen to yourself. So I mentioned earlier on, we've got this database, 35,000 workplace listeners as we speak, keeps growing. But 62% of people identify immediately with being stuck in their own head. They can't get to listening to another person because they got an inner dialogue. And sometimes that inner dialogue is whimsical and playful, and sometimes it's violent and it's destructive. Oh, you always turn up to meeting late, or whatever the thing may be. So, for many of us, the most impactful thing we can do is notice that listening happens before, during, and after the meeting, and you preparing yourself for listening is the most foundational thing you can do. Now, there are many techniques to help you do that. If you're regularly on video conferences, you might play some music for 90 seconds is the most you need to do, but you can play the full length of a song. And that will simply help your brain to go, we're going somewhere different now. So for me, I'll give you a simple example. I play three different songs. They're at three different tempos. And the three different tempos are corresponding to the energy I need to bring for the other person, not for me, but for them. So I've got a really low, slow song at about 70 beats per minute, no words, just music. I've got another song, Easy by Groove Armada, if you really want to know what it is, but it's an upbeat, happy song. It's about 120 to 140 beats per minute. And then there's a last song, a high energy song at 180 beats per minute. Remember the Name by Fort Minor. And that's to get my energy to the highest state possible, right? The other thing you can do is simply drink a glass of water and notice the glass of water and where the water's going in your body. That'll take you 30 seconds, but it'll just get you present to your body. Now, I'm not saying you have to sit there and burn candles and go into a Zen-like state before every conversation. That's not really practical. But whether you play music or whether you drink water or notice your breath, all those three techniques are ways for you to do that. So they are the three most powerful techniques that those 62% of people in our database have said helps them to get ready to listen. There are 5 levels of listening. That's level 1. And the thing that most people get wrong when it comes to listening.
Okay.
How do you go, Mark, listening to yourself?
How do I get into my listening state? Uh,
No, no, more. If I was to spend some time with you during the day, how well do you listen to yourself? Because you said, hey, when I'm in a coaching meeting, I'm in a completely different state to every
right.
other conversation.
I've actually been paying attention to that quite a bit in the past year,
Mm,
listening to my thoughts, feeling my state, feeling the state of my nervous system, really paying attention to how noisy and how quiet uh, it is going on in here. So I'm really well aware of that outside of a coaching conversation. I always said I wish I could be like I was in a coaching conversation out in the world. And now
mm,
I'm learning that that's just a state, that's a decision, and it's a practice to do that. Like before a coaching call, I will often sage or use some Palo Santo. I'll clean my desk. I'll do things to make sure that I know I'm going into an important place at that time. But again, running around during the day, I forget those things, and then I have to bring myself back, bring myself back, bring myself back.
mm,
So since you mentioned it, the 5 levels of listening, we just went through the first. Can you
mm.
take us through those?
Sure. Level 1, listen to yourself. Level 2, listen to the content. And then level 3 is listening for context. So between level 2 and level 3, we move from listening to things to listening for things. At
So
level,
what does that mean to listen for context?
yeah. So context is about content is what is said, and context is how it is said. So do they talk about the past, present, or the future? Do they talk in stories or do they use statistics? Do they talk about problems? Do they talk about solutions? Do they talk about symptoms or do they talk about systems? So it's how people use language. So when you're conscious of that, you'll quickly realize that if they spend all their time talking about the past, as an example, in describing the issue, no point you going, oh, let's buy into the organizational change and we're moving into the future because they're hearing blah, 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 blah. They are signaling to you by speaking in the past that they're stuck there. They also need some kind of acknowledgement for the work they've already done in the past because it's got us to where we are, so we can do the change. And once you do that, but if you're not listening with that ear on, it's a bit difficult. Level 4, listening for what's unsaid. And that's kind of counterintuitive. But when you know that we speak at 125 to 150 words per minute, we can think up to 1,000 words per minute. And some people are up to 1,600 words per minute. That means what people say the first time is 14% of what they think and what they mean. Said another way, 86% of what the person wants to say hasn't been said. If you want somebody or a group to feel seen, heard, and valued, you might take the extra effort to listen to what's not said. And then finally, at level 5, we're listening for meaning. So, what does it mean? So, if I was to say to you, Mark, 3 is half of 8, you would say,
Think we might want to do the math again.
so if I was to say to you, Mark, 3 is half of 8, you would say,
I think 4 is half of 8.
and if I was to take my hand and draw the figure 8 on us in front of me, and if I was to say 3 is half of 8, Mark, what would you say?
I'd say that's very clever. I see your point.
Hmm. If I was to say to you 0 is half of 8, what would you say?
Uh, how so? Explain it to me.
Okay, so imagine an 8 as simply two zeros sitting on top of each other, and we draw a horizontal line through those, and we'll get a pair of scissors and cut. We have two perfectly formed zeros, just like if we vertically cut the 8 in half, we've got two perfectly formed threes. You see, people mean different things. I meant geometry, you were thinking
Oh,
math.
yes.
And if we don't know what a person means and ask them to explain what they mean when we see or hear something very different to what our training is, to what our education is, to what our workplace experience is, our family upbringing, or what we learn at school, we can go, that crazy Oscar, didn't he do primary school maths? Of course it's 4. And a lot of workplace conflict is where somebody turns up and says 3 is half of 8, and everybody in their mind has a little giggle, thinks they misspoke, tries to correct them, point out the error of their ways. But what they don't realize is they mean something completely different. And when you listen for what they mean, not just what they say, they feel seen, heard, and valued. And as a rising leader, you will get incremental effort from somebody when they feel seen, heard, and valued rather than ignored or dismissed or told that that thinking's a little different.
Hmm.
In our workplace, for most problems that we're trying to solve, for most success we're trying to achieve, the answer might be 4. The answer might be 3. The answer might be 0. Or it may be a combination of all of those. Great leaders listen for all 3 rather than dismissing the first one, as you did with me
Right.
earlier on, Mark. So forgive the very basic illustration, but
No, that
that's
was that
a
was that was so well done. That illustrated perfectly what you're saying. But what I hear you saying is the first part, for the first couple of levels, that's kind of entering into the conversation. The next few
mm,
levels seems to need a little bit of conversation, maybe some questions, maybe some, like what else is going on? What else are you thinking about? Kind of drawing people out. And then when they say something that's a non sequitur like you did, so uh, maybe I'm misunderstanding you. Can you explain what you mean by that?
mm. Or, and this is really hard for a lot of people, the most potent listening technique you can use once you've got past listening to yourself. And listen carefully for this one because it's really, really short, but it's really powerful. Here it is. Silent and listen share the identical letters. Now, you can't do that for every part of every conversation. But for most people, if they just added that in, like salt on a meal, uh, it would make the conversation taste very, very, very different. Silent allows the other person to finish what's unsaid. It also signals to a group, if you're doing a team meeting as a leader, that you're willing to create a space for not just that person to contribute, but for anybody else to ask questions. As leaders, questions by themselves are not necessarily a good signal to listening. So if you are a listener, if you're a leader who struggles with the kind of questions you ask, I'll give you a couple of super simple heuristics around listening questions. First one, if you're an extrovert and you need to think out aloud, and that's perfectly okay, just write your question down before you ask it. That will slow you down ever so slightly. Tip number two, notice how many words there are. 8 words or less, probably going to be a listening question. More than 8 words, it's probably a disguised question. It's probably a statement you want to make with a question mark at the end of it. If you're an introvert and love to deeply think about your question before you ask it, I encourage you to ask it much sooner. In group settings, introverts get a really bad reputation because the group has this dialogue. Imagine we're in a 45-minute meeting and they're discussing it and they come up with a solution. And at about the 35-minute mark, the introvert says, is there a reason we haven't asked any questions about the customer? And the group goes, oh. And the group feels like the introvert's thrown a hand grenade and progress is blown up on the railway track towards the solution. Introverts should ask their questions much sooner, even sooner than they feel comfortable, even sooner than they feel is socially acceptable for them. So in that 45-minute meeting, I reckon the introverts figured it out by about the 10-minute mark. That's where they should be asking that question. And that bravery will be rewarded by the group because the group will put all its energy into finding the solution with you rather than cursing you because you didn't speak up sooner. Same rule for the introvert as well. 8 words or less is probably going to be a really good listening question. There are some people who turn up to meetings who don't know why they're there. They've been invited by politeness, or they've been invited, but they're not really sure what meaningful contribution they can make. Slightly before the meeting starts, or ideally the day before, ask the host, if you're not clear, what role do you want me to play? Do you want me to play the role of the competitor, the customer, the regulator, the media, the other department? That will give you a way to stay present in the conversation as well. So be careful with the questions you pose. The shorter, the more likely the question is about the issue, the group, than your position.
I love that also to turn on myself to see if I'm about to ask a question, how long is my question, and is it actually curiosity or is it something in disguise? So that's a nice thing to ferret out your own motives as well.
Mm.
Um,
And if you think you've got a high performing team right now when it comes to listening, uh, here's a really good technique you can use as a leader in the meeting. Just keep a tally of how many times the group asks each other questions rather than make statements. And for bonus points, this is the definition of high performing teams. And earlier on, you mentioned curiosity, Mark, which is great. How many times does the person who's being asked the question clarify the question? Because a lot of people answer their interpretation of a question rather than the actual question. So, high performing teams that feel comfortable being vulnerable to ask a clarifying question have much shorter, higher impact meetings than those that don't.
can you give some good examples for or how to clarify before you answer a question?
Yeah, so you may pose a question to me, such as, hey, Oscar, our growth has slowed. what do you think you could do about it? So my clarifying question may be to clarify the timing of growth. So, Mark, when you say growth, what time horizon are you referring to? The last month, the last quarter, the last year, or maybe the last 5 years? Ah, good point, Oscar. Actually, what I'm referring to is the last 90 days. We've seen growth decline in this customer group over here. Ah, okay. So is it about growth or is it about the customer group? Would be my follow-up clarifying question. Well, it's actually this customer group has declined its spend compared to all the other groups. Ah, okay. So it's not about growth per se, because I could have given this very long answer about growth, but the real question they had, remember when they're asking a question, back to that rule, they speak at 125 words per minute. They've got 1,000 words stuck in their head. So the likelihood they're going to be able to get a jigsaw puzzle and pull out the right words for the questions in the moment is pretty low, 14%, right?
Mhm.
So help them help you, and then you're going to have a much more powerful dialogue.
That's brilliant. And I think some of the inner dialogue that people have to work through is I should have understood the first time. It'll make me look silly if I'm asking questions. I,
And it
you're
makes
shaking
you
your head
look
no.
even silly, makes you look even
100%.
sillier if you answer the question that they didn't ask, and they will come back and repeat the question, or worse still, they will go, "Oh, they didn't get it." So this is particularly important if you're applying for a job and you're in an interview scenario and you're getting asked questions. I think one of the things that recruiters that I work with say consistently is the candidate that occasionally asks a clarifying question is one that we know is bringing a skill set of confidence, of curiosity, of candor to the way they interact with people, and it will differentiate you from other people. Now, if you ask for a clarification on every single question a recruiter asks, you're, it's probably not the right context. So I'm not saying that every question somebody asks needs clarification. But if you're not confident, it's okay to seek clarification.
Nice. So in chapter 3, you talk about giving attention and paying attention.
Mm.
And I'm just fascinated by that.
Yeah, well, for many of us, giving and paying attention is a different state of mind. Paying attention, it feels like taxation. You have to do it. You're mandated to do it. Oh, I have to pay my attention right now. So a classic example of paying attention is kind of sitting in an airplane where they do the flight safety announcement, and you feel like you have to pay attention. You're doing it out of duty, you're doing it begrudgingly, and it has to be done. As opposed to mid-flight, the captain comes on and says, we're experiencing some turbulence here over Texas today, and we're going to have to do the flight safety announcement again because we're about to make an emergency landing. Well, you are giving your full and undivided attention to the flight safety announcement. They're going to run through the exact same flight safety announcement they ran through when you were on the ground. But all of a sudden, your mindset is in a completely different space. When you give attention, you're curious, you're generous, and you're coming from it's not a duty you have to do. Now, you can't give attention 100% of the day, every day. No, no, no. There are times where you pay attention and it's completely appropriate. And yet there are times where you should give attention and you're not even in the conversation itself. So when people say, oh, pay attention, well, that feels like you have to do it. There are times when you want to do it, you want to generously give your attention to the other person. That means you'll hear things in a completely different way. So we invite people just to notice two different states of being Well, one is easy and light, paying attention, and one goes a little bit deeper, giving attention.
Paying attention feels a little victimy, and giving attention feels like taking responsibility. So you're here, you're in the conversation, you're giving your
Yeah.
attention. Uh,
And neither is right or wrong. It's just situationally appropriate.
sure. So let's talk about just kind of listening at scale when you're
Mm.
trying to do company wide, when you're trying, multiple stakeholders, you're working with power dynamics, you're, different agendas. How do you listen at scale?
Yeah, well, in the book, we had a great conversation with Hugh Forrest, who's been running programming from South by Southwest for best part of 15 years now. And they survey all the attendees at South by Southwest. And as an example of listening at scale, they take off a week. They print out all the research data that they get. And as a group, they sit in a room for a week and go through the research. And it's no secret that South by Southwest has grown over time and had a massive economic impact on Austin and moved it. I think it's now the 11th biggest city in the United States. Because Hugh would say that it's not enough to collect the information. That's hearing. If you really want to listen at scale, you have to make changes. You have to synthesize and you need to prioritize. A lot of organizations I work with have this very faux ritual called the Employee Engagement Survey or the Associate Survey, depending on how they label the people they work with. And I say to them, can you tell me the three things you've implemented as a result of the last survey? And they'll tell me all the key issues that are in the survey. And then I'll have to go back and say, that's great. You've described the issues really well, but tell me what you've actually done about it. And about 6% of the organizations I work with will have done something about it. And for them, I say to them, has that been communicated regularly to the employees throughout the year, not just when the next survey is designed to do? So the biggest mistake most people do listening at scale is closing the loop. You said this, we did that. And I'll give you a really practical example of this. I was working with an insurance company that you call in and you're put on hold. And at the end of the call in this sequence, you'll be asked to input on a scale of 1 to 5, how likely are you to recommend this organization to a friend or a colleague, right? The net promoter score. And they were really frustrated because people just weren't filling them in. So I said to them, tell me the three things you've changed as a result of all the feedback you've got about the net promoter score. And they went through it. There was A and B and C and D, and they had a huge work program and they'd made some significant changes. So I said, great, let's change the on hold music and let's just put in 15 seconds of thanks for your call. At the end of this call, you'll be asked for your input. Over the last 90 days, we've implemented the following changes to make a better experience for you, A, B, and C. Your feedback matters. They tripled the number of people who provided feedback just by telling people what they
Yeah,
did with the feedback. Now, that's really hard to do in the Dallas Fort Worth airport restrooms where you got to put the smiley face in or whatever in the restroom. I think that feedback's kind of immediate. If there's lots of sad faces, probably there's some cleaning required in there. But that's immediate feedback. And I'm not sure how many people go and touch the smiley faces in an airport or in a gas station. But if you can communicate not just what you've heard, because the difference between hearing and listening is action.
that is brilliant. That is brilliant. So good. This conversation is so unique and from a different perspective than most of the conversations I've had. I'm super humbled by just what I've learned so far. And I spent some time on your YouTube and, kind of diving deep. You just bring so much expertise and care to your topic. If people want to know more and want to dive in further, where can they find you?
Oh, please don't find me. Go and find your listening. Visit listeningquiz.com and you can take the 20 question assessment. It takes 7 minutes and you get a 5 page report. So visit listeningquiz.com. And if you want to get in touch with me on the report you get, you can have a few ways that you can get in touch with me. But honestly, I think it's more important that you connect with your listening before you connect with me.
I love that. I wanted you to pitch that because I want people to go and do that. I'm going to go and do that. Now I'm afraid of I'm supposed to be good at this, and I've just learned so much in such a short period of time. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for bringing your expertise and your care to the conversation.
Thanks for listening.
To everybody else, I appreciate your ears so much. Your time and attention is precious to me. I love you. Have a great rest of the day.